I always knew my sister-in-law Rebecca hated me. I just didn't realize she hated me enough to ruin the most important day of my life. Most people think of Bridezillas, but they don't talk about the guestzillas, the ones who simmer in the background until the perfect moment to strike. I was standing in my bridal suite, staring at a giant crimson red wine stain dripping down the front of my $4,000 lace gown, when I realized the accident wasn't an accident at all. And what Rebecca didn't know was that I had a backup plan that would make sure she was the only thing people laughed at for the next 10 years. Let's back up. My husband, Mark, is amazing, but his sister, Rebecca, has main character syndrome. When we got engaged, she tried to announce her pregnancy at our engagement party. When we picked the venue, she complained that it was too far from her house, even though she lives 20 minutes away. For the wedding, I tried to be the bigger person. I made her a bridesmaid. I let her choose her own jewelry. But I drew the line at the dress. She kept suggesting off-white or champagne dresses for herself, and I had to firmly tell her, no. You are wearing the sage green bridesmaid dress like everyone else. She went quiet. Too quiet. The morning of the wedding was a dream, until it wasn't. We were at the venue, a beautiful historic estate. My dress was hanging on the wardrobe door. I had stepped out for 5 minutes to grab some mimosas for the girls. When I walked back in, Rebecca was standing near the dress, looking horrified. There was a bottle of Cabernet shattered on the floor, and my dress, it looked like a crime scene. The red wine had soaked through the delicate lace and into the silk lining. "Oh my God, Chloe!" Rebecca shrieked. "I'm so clumsy. I tripped over my heels and the bottle just flew." I felt the blood drain from my face. It was 3 hours before the ceremony. My bridesmaids were panicking. My mom was crying. But then, Rebecca did something strange. She didn't look guilty. She looked prepared. "Don't worry," she said, her voice dropping into a fake, soothing tone. "I actually brought a backup dress for the rehearsal dinner that I didn't use. It's a bit formal, but it'll fit you." She zipped open her garment bag and pulled out a gown. It wasn't a rehearsal dinner dress. It was a full, white, floor-length bridal gown. It was even more beaded and extra than mine. She had been waiting for this. She ruined my dress so she could save the day by making me wear a dress she chose. Or better yet, so she could wear it herself if I refused. I looked at the wine bottle. It was on the other side of the room from where she claimed to have tripped. And then I noticed her hands. She had faint red splashes on her fingers, but none on her own bridesmaid dress. She had poured it. I looked at my maid of honor, Sarah. Sarah knows I don't get mad. I get even. "Rebecca," I said, forced calm in my voice. "You're right. I can't wear this. Why don't you go down to the reception hall and make sure the florists are done? I need a moment to process." As soon as she left, Sarah looked at me. "We're calling a seamstress? A dry cleaner?" "No," I said. "We're calling my cousin Leo." Leo is a professional hairstylist and amateur artist. I told him to bring his kit and every bottle of fabric-safe pigment he used for his Trash the Dress photo shoots. While Rebecca was downstairs, acting like the grieving sister of the bride, we went to work. We didn't try to hide the stain. We leaned into it. Leo and my bridesmaids spent 2 hours creating an ombre effect. We turned that wine stain into a stunning, deep rose to blush gradient across the bottom and bodice of the dress. It looked like a custom designer piece. It was unique. It was bold. But we weren't done. I knew Rebecca had a second emergency dress in her car, the white one she wanted to wear to overshadow me. I sent my brother to help her move her bags, and, let's just say, he accidentally swapped her white gown for a dress from the venue's Lost and Found box, an oversized neon yellow sundress from 2004. When the music started and I walked down the aisle, the gasp from the guests was audible. The dress looked incredible. Mark's jaw hit the floor. I looked over at the bridesmaids' row. Rebecca was vibrating with rage. She was stuck in that sage green dress she hated, and her her savior moment had been completely erased. Even worse, she had to spend the whole night explaining to people why she accidentally had a white wedding gown in her car, which my brother found and brought to the coat check for everyone to see. After the ceremony, she tried to corner me. "You ruined the aesthetic, Chloe. You look unconventional." I leaned in and whispered, "The wine was a bold choice, Rebecca, but I think the neon yellow you've got waiting in your car for the reception is even bolder. Happy wedding day." She didn't stay for the cake. The ceremony was a triumph, but the reception is where Rebecca finally snapped. You see, Rebecca wasn't just content with ruining my dress. She had scripted a hero speech. She expected me to be up there in her white dress, sobbing about how she saved the day. Instead, I was glowing in my custom-dyed rose ombre gown. Every guest was coming up to me, asking which high-end designer had made such a daring, modern piece. Halfway through dinner, the champagne started flowing, and Rebecca's filter disappeared. She stood up, uninvited, and tapped her glass for a speech. The room went silent. "I'm so glad Chloe could pivot today," she said, her voice dripping with venom. "It's amazing what you can do with a little spilled wine. Most people would have been devastated, but Chloe always was good at making a mess look intentional." The room went cold. Mark, my husband, shifted in his seat, his face hardening. He's a quiet man, but he isn't blind. "Actually, Rebecca," Mark said, standing up, "I'm glad you mentioned the wine, because the venue manager just showed me the hallway security footage. It's funny, you didn't trip. You stood outside the bridal suite for 3 minutes, looked around to see if the coast was clear, and then walked in with a bottle you took from the bar. Care to explain?" The silence that followed was deafening. Rebecca's face went from smug to ghostly pale. She started stammering about protecting the family legacy and how my original dress wasn't grand enough for their family name. My mother-in-law, who had spent years defending Rebecca's quirks, looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her whole. She finally saw what I had been seeing for years. "Get out," Mark said. It wasn't a yell. It was a cold, quiet command. "Mark, don't be dramatic," Rebecca started. "You tried to destroy my wife's happiness because you couldn't stand not being the center of attention for 8 hours, Mark said. "You're done. Leave the reception and don't bother coming to Sunday brunch." Rebecca looked around for an ally, but even her husband was staring at his plate in shame. She grabbed her purse and stormed out, but not before screaming that we were all ungrateful and that she made this wedding. You'd think that was the end of it, but the best part happened exactly 1 year later. Rebecca, true to form, tried to stage a vow renewal for her own anniversary to correct the energy of our wedding. She invited everyone, spent a fortune, and bought a dress that looked suspiciously like the one I was supposed to wear. She posted a countdown on Instagram every day for a month. But here's the thing about being a main character. Eventually, the audience gets tired of the show. Because of her behavior at our wedding, Mark's parents had finally set boundaries. His extended family, who were horrified by the Winegate video, which Sarah, my maid of honor, may or may not have shared in the family group chat, all coincidentally had prior engagements. On the day of her grand vow renewal, only 6 people showed up. Mark and I didn't go. We were too busy. We spent our first anniversary in a quiet cabin in the woods. I wore a simple white sundress. No wine stains, no drama, and most importantly, no Rebecca. She sent me a long, rambling text blaming me for poisoning the family against her. I didn't reply. I just blocked the number and took a sip of my wine. This time, a very expensive white wine. Because as I learned on my wedding day, some things are better when they're transparent. Wow. There is nothing quite as satisfying as a husband who actually stands up to his toxic family. But I want to know, do you think Mark should have let her stay for the cake, or was the public call-out the only way to handle it? I'll see you in the next story.